I'm Stephen Nolan. I'm the CEO of Nutritics.
Stephen Nolan is CEO of food tech company Nutritics. Founded in 2012 by brothers Ciarán and Damian O'Kelly, Nutritics has developed a fully automated carbon footprint scoring system for the food services industry and its customers, which earned Nutritics the inaugural Sustainability Prize at the 2022 EOY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards.
I suppose I always had an eye for business, and my dad would have set up his own business, and that was always something that I found very inspiring and kind of felt that I needed to do the groundwork in terms of getting set for business. Progressed through secondary school, went to my Leaving Cert the first time, made a total mess of it, didn't put the work in, and that was my first lesson in life, and went about it the second time and made damn sure that I put the work in and got into the commerce in UCD, and that really gave me the basis for kind of the foundation of business and ultimately kind of specialised in finance with that. So around that time I felt that it was the time to go abroad and try and expand my skill set internationally. So I applied for a couple of graduate programmes in London in corporate finance, and I was lucky enough to be accepted by an Australian bank, Macquarie, onto their graduate programme. It was August 2007, and the world was everyone's oyster around that time, and you know, joined the bank and really kind of started to learn very quickly, I suppose, that the global financial crisis evolved, and actually that resulted in probably even more learning than I would have got in an upward market as we tried to navigate that from both a corporate finance perspective and then an asset management perspective, but all the time really good sound operators that really knew business, and I learned a huge amount from that. I was really enjoying finance, and I kind of saw that as my kind of calling, for want of a better description. And alongside that, I was you know, exercising, doing running, and you know, just kind of doing stuff that mid-20s males do. But I had a niggle on my back, and it wouldn't go away. I arrived into the doctor's surgery and explained my situation, that I was a keen runner, I'd got a sore back. And the doctor looked at me and said, well, just stop running. It's kind of a bit annoyed, a bit frustrated that I haven't got my value for money. And I noticed at that time that I actually had a little lump. I was like, I might as well just ask this fella about it now that I'm here and try and get some value for money. So he checked me out. He said, you need to get that seen to urgently. 24 hours later, I was being operated on in Harley Street. And that really changed everything for me, from going from a fantastic, steady career with a great prospect to being diagnosed with cancer, and kind of, had I not really had the fortune of spotting that and kind of having the doctor kind of nearly annoy me into telling him about it, frankly, I wouldn't be here today. So all of a sudden, I suppose, from a life point of view, you go from a steady state to really realising that your future and your health is the most important asset that you'd ever have. And for me, that totally changed everything overnight. And kind of as you go through the kind of follow-on radiotherapy and so on, it does give you an opportunity to reflect and look back at things and kind of challenge yourself in ways that just frankly you haven't challenged yourself before. In many respects, you've even used set of eyes, and it says, well, the direction that I'm going, you know, I can continue to do that, or I can actually go try and do something different, take a chance, take a risk, because really the alternative is that I didn't get the diagnosis, and that turns into quite a morbid conversation. So everything is bonus territory from here on forward. So if you're in bonus territory, you're happy to take risks, and you're happy to actually go forward and do something that you really deeply underneath it all wanted to do. I was really lucky that with Macquarie, an incredibly supportive employer at that time, so they let me to go away and do some volunteer work in Australia. I was incredibly passionate about volunteer work. The Cancer Council in Western Australia were looking for volunteers with corporate finance expertise, which is quite serendipitous in many respects. So I went in and helped them build up their whole financial modelling and so on. And at the time, I kind of felt that technology was my calling, but I wasn't 100% sure around how exactly I'd do it. I had a background in corporate finance, and it allowed me the time to reflect and ultimately say, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to step forward and do it. So I moved back to Dublin and tried to start the next stage of my career. When I moved back to Dublin, I really wanted to do kind of something that was entrepreneurial and cool and new, and I was at a stage in life where Sarah and I were together, but we didn't have any family, and the world of technology excited me. So I went around Dublin and kind of saw what was out there, and I met two brothers, Damian and Ciarán O'Kelly. They were doing a health technology accelerator at the time, and straight away from the first meeting, what they were doing just totally blew me away. They were developing a software that at the time was based on diet analysis, and it was really a scientific end of kind of food and diet analysis. And when I spoke with them, they kind of casually mentioned that there were athletes from the English Institute of Sport, they'd Oxford University using this platform, and I was like, well, there aren't that many companies in the world, let alone sitting in front of me in Dublin, have this calibre of client and you know, in many respects haven't really got started. So they were looking for help, for kind of someone to help run the business, and I said, well, this is absolutely what I want to do. So very lucky in many respects that kind of two brilliant minds in Damian and Ciarán, who can kind of take something and make it into a product that is just unbelievable. But what we recognised at the time was actually that although the diet analysis piece was kind of what was driving the software and the initial kind of gem of the idea for the company, the real value was underneath in the food data, and being able to accurately have information around what people are eating presents a lot of opportunity. And in 2014, the world was fundamentally changing around this. Allergens had just come into law across Europe, so anywhere where you walked into a restaurant, you legally were entitled to ask for the allergens, be it in written form or in verbal form. So the hospitality sector was in this flux where they really kind of were trying to understand the food information for what they were serving. The consequences of them getting it wrong were extremely serious, and there was a complete lack of technology in the market. So what we did was we set about solving their problem in terms of the availability of allergen information and nutrition information, but underlying it, build out a really deep tier one kind of operating system that hospitality operators could use and run their business on, to manage their recipes, manage their menus, analyse the budgets, really everything that you need to do from a food service and hospitality perspective, but also not forgetting our roots in kind of healthcare, elite sport and education, where scientific, reliable data is what drives a lot of these sectors. And when you combine those two together, you've got a fantastic platform that you can scale across food businesses really anywhere in the world, that gives you reliable results that you can trust, which is an incredible opportunity. Nutritics is a software technology platform, and what we do is we help hospitality operators run safer, more sustainable and more profitable businesses. So we take the really complex information that they have in their supply chain, be it allergens, nutrition, food provenance, carbon impact, cost, really anything associated with the product or the packaging. we bring that into a platform for hospitality operators, be it hotels, restaurant groups, pub groups, catering companies, really anywhere across hospitality, and allow them to take that food data, manage their recipes and menus, and decide what goes on the menu, what's profitable, what will work for a particular patient profile in a hospital around nutrition requirements and so on. And once they have that developed, they can take that information and then communicate it out to the end customer. And that's either on a food label, they can do it on a website, directly into a customer's website, they can do it out to a point of sale system, they can do it out to a delivery app, like Deliveroo or Just Eat. And we can manage that end-to-end data flow. So from a hospitality operator, they're working with live data all of the time, and they know that their customers are reviewing live, accurate and reliable information that their customers in turn can make food choices which both reduces their risk and ultimately increases their profitability. Sustainability in very simple terms presents the biggest opportunity and the most viable threat to business. Nothing simply exists like that in the past. From an opportunity perspective, there's opportunity for business to embrace it and effectively get ahead of the curve, get the credit now rather than waiting 3 or 4 years to have to do it anyway and not get the credit. And then from a threat point of view, talking about the long-term viability of your business, this will affect everyone. So we look at sustainability, I suppose, through the lens of food and drink, and where we are with sustainability at the moment actually feels a lot like where we were 10 years ago with allergens and with food data in general, where there's kind of an acceptance that the awareness needs to increase and we need to embrace it and so on, but there's not quite the education there and the kind of detail around what exactly can I do, which presents massive opportunity. So if I think of sustainability, I suppose in the world of food, there's lots of conversation around food miles and so on, which is incredibly important. But then if I flip that on its head and I say, well, if food miles is the be all and end all, why don't we grow bananas in Ireland? And then actually you realise that is way worse for the environment than growing them in Ecuador because of the emissions involved in actually producing the heat to grow the bananas and so on. And the food miles only account for typically between 5 to 10% of emissions. The conversation around sustainability and around educating the consumer as to what are the kind of real drivers in terms of making sustainable change is really only starting. And from our perspective, and when we developed the Foodprint product, it was trying to help the consumer and hospitality operators to really kind of understand that, to use it to both reformulate internally, analyse the menus in terms of the carbon impact of that, report on it, and then also communicate it out to the customers. And whilst not make the choice for customers, you can help educate customers around what impact particular dishes have on the environment. Look, food production and food in general accounts for anywhere between 25 to 35% of overall global greenhouse gas emissions. It's a massive contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So if you then look at that in its constituent components, well, what exactly is making that up, and really trying to understand that and understand from a production perspective where exactly emissions occur and how exactly you can change that. So what we're trying to do is to support through technology that information to drive change. It's to drive change within the supply chain in terms of how people purchase. Is it better to purchase from supplier A or supplier B? It's how people create and form recipes and menus. How do we actually engineer out carbon out of our recipe, or make the impact less, or adjust the overall menu mix that we still have the high carbon foods, but actually we have low carbon foods and recipes as well. And then how do we help educate the customer around that as well? So there's quite a wide breadth of information. But if we look at some of the research trials that we've done with our technology, I suppose to give you a sense of the impact around that we can show that we can reduce the emissions of recipes by anywhere between 12% right up to 49% in some cases. And if you think that everything that everyone eats in the world, if we could just use technology to reduce emissions by 12% or even higher, in a world where that makes up such an overall proportion of emissions, you're into massively game-changing technology that can really drive change and support both the industry and the planet with a brighter future. First and foremost with sustainability, it is very purpose-led, and what we're trying to do is ultimately nudge society towards making more sustainable choices. But that starts internally with our team, and I suppose being a facilitator of change, and that the whole team being a facilitator of change really drives a whole different level of momentum in the business, because you have people coming into the business wanting to work for the business, not only for the reasons that everyone wants to work for every business in terms of compensation, career progression and so on, but they feel they also have a higher purpose in life, and they feel that they can drive change. And the ability to empower a team with that kind of unique feeling is really special, and it enables us not only to kind of think differently around our technology, but also have a team that kind of feels like they too are making a difference as well. It leads to higher retention, it leads to better awareness, and ultimately a better outcome for the planet as well as for business. When we set up Nutritics and when the journey started, one thing that we were pretty adamant about was that if we can't find customers to pay for our software, then we don't have a business. And that fed into a natural conversation around funding and how exactly we fund the business. And it was a very simple answer for us. We customers fund the business, because if we can't sell to them, there is no business. And we avoid what, my own personal view is maybe the trappings of early stage finance, where you can take on money for in some cases frankly a great idea, but in that moment you lose control of your destiny, and you don't have the maybe the flexibility in terms of going on the longer term journey, building out the product the way that you want to, listening to customers, kind of getting a couple of things wrong, getting a couple of things right. But ultimately, kind of now 9-10 years later on, here we are where we haven't taken on equity financing. We've built a fantastic business. We wouldn't have been able to do that frankly if we'd kind of nearly spoilt it with early stage funding. I do accept that for some businesses early stage funding is an absolute necessity depending on the market, but for us, I suppose, building a software business, it's really about customers, and if customers can pay for it, great. If they'll pay, you can get on a couple more customers, great, then you bring on more development, and the whole thing flowers. And really that's kind of been our philosophy to date. I think kind of as the company evolves, the kind of medium and later stage companies, there's a different conversation around funding, because it's funding for growth. You have product market fit, and you have the oil is kind of on the machine, and you're flying down the motorway. At particular junctures within a journey for a business, it may be appropriate, but ultimately if you can't sell the product to customers, that's a huge risk. I think the biggest lesson has to come back to life events for me, where everything is bonus territory. That attitude allows you to take risks in certain scenarios. It you get things wrong probably every day, but it's ultimately what you do with that and how you take it forward, and really trying not to think too much about. Like, I'm sure there's, if I gave it some thought, there's lots of things that I'd regret along the journey. But if you spend time thinking about the things that have gone wrong and how you could have made them better and so on, you just lose so much energy focusing on the wrong thing. Something goes wrong, fine, take it, use it where you can, and don't make the same mistake again, and go forward. And it's as simple as that when you've got a cautious attitude to risk, but is essentially kind of in that kind of risk-free hypothesis, and you're not kind of overthinking things, then you're free and clear to go and really drive forward. Early 2008, when the world was kind of falling apart, I'll never forget one morning the head of the London office in Macquarie just kind of called us together for a meeting, and he just very simply said, "This is the new normal." This is what we have to work with going forward long term. And straight away, everyone's mindset changed, and you kind of into the fight or flight mode, and you really try and drive the business forward. And ultimately, from a banking perspective, that business is one of the businesses that really navigated the financial crisis exceptionally well. And if you kind of fast forward that into kind of the world of COVID, which it really impacted hospitality, and you look at the period kind of January, February 2020, where you can see the wheels that are starting to come off a bit, you're not quite sure how it will go. On the 9th of February, over in our office here, we did a presentation, and we just quite simply said, this is our black swan moment. We have to do something completely different to everyone else, because it will give us such an edge when we come out of it. We decided to retain the whole team in a world where all of our competitors were furloughing people, they were letting people go. And we said, we'll never get back these 3 or 4 months again. So anything that you ever wanted to do in terms of strategy development, sales development, product development, whatever it is, now is your chance. That was a massive opportunity for us that we took with both hands. We came out of that period a really lean, strong business, moving into a period where regulation in the UK was changing around food labelling and calories further on into 2022. And we arrived out of the blocks booming, ready to go, and we just flew. And our competitors were trying to, in some cases, trying to copy our websites, trying to do all sorts of mad stuff because they didn't know what to do. And it feels like in some respects, whilst not as extreme as COVID, obviously we are kind of in a little bit of this kind of black swan moment with sustainability, where we're not really sure what to do, but externally in the market. But we as a business are like, we're ready to go. We have a solution. We have a lot of the answers. We don't have them all, but we can genuinely change the world. And that's tremendously exciting.
Our first ever Sustainability Entrepreneur of the Year is Stephen Nolan, Nutritics.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thanks so much.
Being part of the EOY Entrepreneur of the Year program and community was incredibly inspiring for me, and it's, you know, it has definitely changed both my own personal outlook and also the outlook for our business. What we're doing at times it can be lonely. At times you're looking east and everyone else is looking west, and you're like, why am I looking east? Why is everyone else looking west? But then actually when you enrich yourself in the community and when you get acknowledged by that same community for the efforts that you're doing in sustainability, it is incredibly inspiring, and it really drives, you know, our whole team forward. I often speak about our team being acknowledged. It's not just me. I just happen to be the person who's sitting in front of the camera, but it's the whole team that have really driven our business to date, and will continue to do so. That, I suppose, access to like-minded entrepreneurs, the knowledge sharing, the camaraderie, it makes a huge difference and makes that journey just that little bit easier, and it's something that I'm really excited and enjoy being a part of. I suppose if I had one piece of advice, and it kind of comes back from personal experience, if you're kind of in a kind of what I'd call a career, and you have aspirations to maybe make the jump, why not do it today? What's stopping you? And if there is something stopping you, is it really stopping you? Or is it just something that's in your mind? What's the worst that's going to happen? You can go back to your career in a year or two, but you can have the alternative scenario where you look back at your career and you say, God, I wish I did that. Why didn't I do that? There's tons of reasons to do things, and there's tons of reasons not to do things, I suppose, but ultimately you just need to go for it and never look back.